I'm going to talk tonight about general sort of tag and release sort of stuff, pop-up satellite tags, which is the next generation, of course. That's one of the reasons David wanted me to come down, because as you know, some of the guys here, Jamie included, have been involved in pop-up satellite tagging on tiger sharks, and other people have, over the last 4 or 5 years, helped with putting these pop-up satellite tags into marlin as well. We've had quite a few tags. As many of you probably know, I've been involved in the tagging program for a long time. I joined New South Wales Fisheries in 1976, and the tagging program had started a few years before that. And it was modelled on an American system that was pretty successful, where these tags were being handed out over there. So it was proven that it actually worked, that you could give recreational anglers plastic tags and they would stick them into billfish and tuna, and some of those would be recaptured. So it was worth trying here. That was lobbied by Peter Goadby and John O'Brien at the time to the Director of Fisheries at the time, who was a pretty forward-thinking guy called Don Francois. He said, okay, we'll have this tagging program. A couple of years later, I came along, fresh-faced young biologist working on tagging of other species of fish, and they wanted me to run this program. And at that time, there was only a couple of hundred fish per year had been tagged, and it was sort of seen as a bit of a, not really scientific exercise, but it was an interesting thing for some people to do. So I sort of decided that if it was going to yield scientific results, you needed to really give it a push and get lots of fish tagged, and therefore we'd just see what sort of recaptures we get in Australia. Basically, I'll just give you a few stats. The tagging program has been going, as I said, it started in 1973-74. This is about when I took over, and we bumped it up to about 2,000 fish being tagged. When this program started off, I went to a tournament at Port Stephens in 1976, and there were 286 black marlin that weighed and none tagged. And all of those 286 marlin, the average size was about 28 kilograms. But it was not sort of unusual, and nobody really kind of thought it was a bad thing. Well, some people did, but the attitudes were changing a bit. But anyway, so as you can see, the next couple of years, people started to tag fish. And in fact, at New South Wales Fisheries, we had our own game fishing club, and we used to enter with scientists and fisheries inspectors in shark cats we had at the time, and we'd fish in the tournaments and try and win the tagging trophies. There was only one tagging trophy in these tournaments in those days. So, but then you can see that it just steadily increased and increased. And once the impetus got going and once tagging took off, obviously, it really took off. And as you can see, these are the numbers on the left-hand side. So the maximum that we've had tagged on the program was 18,000 fish in 1990-91. That was a big El Nino, La Nina year. Actually, I remember that year when there were a lot of small black marlin, but also lots of yellowfin and lots of everything. But anyway, the point is that the program has been tremendously successful. It's really probably the most successful game fish tagging program in the world in terms of participation, numbers of fish tagged. The United States have a number of these programs, and they get maybe 4,000 or 5,000 fish per year tagged, mostly billfish. We always allowed every recognized species of game fish, including marty and skipjack tuna in the early days. We'd go and tag hundreds of them. But times have changed, and the species being tagged now are mostly pretty big fish. It costs around about $120,000 a year these days to run. All of that money used to come straight out of Consolidated Revenue, Treasury Department, New South Wales Government. Now it comes out of your licence fee, so you get even more value for money from your licence fee, which goes into the tagging program. But over the years, there have been a few attempts to actually stop the program. But the impetus from the game fish fishery, when those sorts of instances have happened, have prevented it from stopping. And it really has proven itself to be really valuable, not just for recaptures of tagged fish, but that's been very, very important, and I've got just a few maps to show you some of those. But also the releases of fish. When you fill in your card and fill in all the details of the size of the fish and the date and everything, that goes into a central database. All of that information is a really incredibly good long-term record of where fish were caught, how big they were, and when they were caught. I've actually had 3 students do honours theses on analysing that data, not the recapture information, but the tag, the release information, and try and correlate the abundance of marlin, for example, or dolphin fish or yellowfin tuna with sea surface temperatures or El Nino episodes to see whether there's any correlation. And that's proven that to be really valuable to look at environmental influences on the catches of the fish over the years, which would not have happened without the tagging program. We would not have had those records at all. I forgot to mention that there's been over 350,000 fish tagged on this program now, and 26% of those, work that out in your head, have been billfish. Over about, I think, close to 50,000 of those have been black marlin, which is a really, it's a fantastic record. In fact, black marlin are the most common species tagged on the program. Sharks have been pretty constant, around about 8% of the total fish tagged have been sharks, and the rest are other species, which include mahi-mahi. Just some of the movements. This is kind of like an accumulation of that length of information on long-term recaptures of black marlin that have moved really long distances. I mean, there's been lots and lots of short distance movements. The norm in tagging programs is that when fish are tagged, you'll get a number of those recaptured relatively soon after release, and they haven't gone very far. And then as you extend through time, you'll get further and further distances. And so one of the points of this exercise is to look at the stock structure of fish. The movements of individual fish is really important, but the big question is, all of these game fish that we catch that move, we know they move pretty big distances, or we think they do. Are there stocks ocean-wide? In other words, is the stock of black marlin, is that population right across the whole Pacific, or are there pockets of populations that need to be managed separately, internationally, from an international perspective? So as it turns out, black marlin have moved right. This map actually should go right over to the other side of the Pacific. All of these ones have moved to the eastern Pacific, and there's been a number since then. And this has really shown that black marlin are one stock in the Pacific, and they mix quite quickly and quite freely throughout the whole of the Pacific Ocean. So that means if you're going to manage black marlin, you need to do it internationally. There's no point in us saying, well, we'll just manage the black marlin here if they're getting a hammering somewhere else, because we know that they're the same population of fish. The contrast is striped marlin. These are the recaptures, or not all of them, but the longer term recaptures of striped marlin. We've had a lot of striped marlin recaptured, and most of them have been returned by Australian longline boats, which is a question I'm often asked is, do people send the tags back? Well, in this case, they are. They're sending back tags from striped marlin, which is really good because, the commercial fishery knows that the recreational pressure is on them to, not slaughter the striped marlin, but they're still sending tags back, which is great. What this data shows, and pop-up satellite tag data too, which I'll show you in a minute, is that striped marlin do not move big distances like black marlin do. In fact, these are the longest distances we've had moved, and whereas black marlin have been, many, many times these distances. So this, together with genetic studies, has shown that the striped marlin populations are, in fact, isolated and distinct from each other. So we have a population of striped marlin in the southwestern Pacific, which is completely separate from a population in the eastern Pacific, off Mexico and Central America, and another population off southern Japan and in the northern Pacific is separate as well. That's proven by DNA and also by the tag results back that up. So that means if you're going to manage striped marlin, yes, we can in fact talk about managing striped marlin in this area and have a big say in how this population of striped marlin is looked after. When I say looked after, in how you would manage it, restrict the catches, maybe put quotas on them, have seasonal closures, all the sorts of tools that fisheries managers use